Today we're going to talk about AI in medical education. We know there's a lot of information out there that we're used to seeing on the news, social media, like everywhere. So today we want to talk about six practical things you can take away that you can use in, yes, medical education, but it's not all about the super hype that we see all over the place, but things that our team at the company in Medtrics have been using and that we have seen it has worked for other clients and for leads, etc. I know some of you know us, have seen our lovely faces, but for those who don't, Tosh, Katie, can you please introduce yourselves?
Thank you, Silvana. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Santhosh Cherian. I'm CEO here at Medtrics. Clinically, I'm an emergency radiologist. Been working on solving some of the challenges in medical education at Medtrics for about 12 years now when we first started. Excited to talk to you today about AI.
Thank you, Tosh. Katie.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I think some of you we've already had Zooms with today, so it's good to see you again. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Katie Garrity, the Institutional Onboarding Specialist at Medtrics. So I help onboard new clients. I am your weekly point of contact for implementing the system, learning how to use it effectively, and setting you up for success.
Awesome. And for those who don't know me, this is my first webinar here at the company. So I'm Silvana. I want to share a little bit of my personal journey and what led me to be here today. So I was born and raised in Mexico City. I still live here. I joined the Medtrics team remotely like a year and a half ago. But in my family, like the favorite profession is doctor. So I have been growing up surrounded by doctors. A lot of my friends are going through their healthcare education journey. My best friend is doing his fellowship in ortho surgery. So I have been used to hearing what happened in healthcare education here in Mexico. So when I joined the sales team at Medtrics, I was like, okay, how am I supposed to be selling a platform to help improve all of these challenges if I don't know what are the constraints or the needs of the people in the US? So since my first demo, I realized, okay, I have heard this before here in Mexico. And as I started joining more and more demos with people in Asia, in Europe, in the Caribbean, I realized that yes, every country, every school might have its own system or ways of doing things. But at the end of the day, the challenges, they are pretty much the same. They are facing the same constraints. And if you have these same problems, you can also find the same unified solution that can help anyone, anywhere. So this is not going to be the typical presentation of only these three lovely faces speaking and speaking. We want to hear from you guys too. So if you can please scan this QR code, we're going to ask you some questions and we want to see your answers. And if you have any ideas that you would like to share or something you would like to debate on, feel free to drop it in the chat. So to get this started, Tosh, why did you feel it was important to touch on this topic today?
Thank you, Silvana. When we started thinking about this topic for the webinar, and when I thought about AI in general, how it's impacted my life, I went back to like our mission, and this is a slide that I often use to share my purpose, why I wake up in the morning to work at Medtrics. And us as a company, as a team, a few years ago came up with this as our mission to create an engaged healthcare workforce to save our lives. The most important part there is save our lives. These couple of photos is from 3 years ago when my son was born. My wife and I were in the emergency room with him because he had some problems breathing. And the physician that's back there is an ENT resident who showed up and he was about to put a scope down our son's airway to see if there's any blockages. And I was going through a lot of things in my head and not sharing that with my wife because she was already anxious. Is this resident well rested? Does he know what he's doing? Is he competent in this procedure? How many times have you done it before? Something else that clicked immediately at that point was most of us, when you go to the hospital, is going to be a trainee or junior resident or a student, someone that is learning medicine that's going to be the front line. How do you make sure those individuals have minimal context switching? How do you make sure they have more time for themselves? How do you reduce the amount of administrative burden and technical burden that they have to deal with? And what I see with AI, this has been our core mission for the platform, but with AI, what I'm seeing across the board, even for our team members, it allows individuals to focus on what really matters and cut down on some of the tedious work that they have been doing. And that's why I thought this was an important topic, because in healthcare, as we all know, we have plenty of tedious work to do.
Yep. And for our audience, how many of you have used AI this week? If you have, drop an emoji, whichever you like, in the chat. We want to know who else is using AI in here. So the agenda for today is we're going to start with 3 practical tips of using AI for leadership. Tosh, can you share a little bit of your journey of using AI here at Medtrics?
Yeah, so essentially, I've been using it for 3 years on a daily basis, and I think almost everyone at Medtrics have been using it every day since they started at Medtrics, or it's something that is part of our normal everyday life. I even use it sometimes at home. The other day, for example, one of the things I got lazy with was reading stories, bedtime stories after the 4th book with our toddler, and I used ChatGPT to come up with a custom story that it played back. And so, now we had all these characters that was like Disney characters, our son, our dog, and it narrated a whole story. So it's really like embedded into my life. And I think that's really how I've been encouraging our team to do it. It's like, how do you use it safely and how do you use it to make your life better?
We know there is quite a few tools out there to choose from, but before I hear from Tosh and Katie, I want to learn from you, everyone watching this right now. How do you decide which AI tools are safe to use? I see quite a few numbers moving here. Internal policy, IT security approval, peer or industry standards, not sure. Okay, I'm loving this. It looks like the winner is internal policy, then personal judge. No, okay, IT or security approval, personal judgment, peer industry standards, and someone is not sure. So, Tosh, can you help us with some tips on how do you decide which AI tools we use within the company?
All of us are bombarded with new tools every single day. There are some major companies that are investing billions of dollars into growing the AI ecosystem. So how do you cut through the clutter? And when you look at those options, all of those are the right answer. Obviously there's going to be policies and things like that. But one thing to note is like some of those things take time for an organization to go through the proper review process. There's really 3 questions that I ask that allows me to instantly know if I am going to even consider looking at a tool. And this is something that everybody at Medtrics is well aware of. So some of our technical team members may be looking at new tools all the time, and now they know that you wouldn't even present a tool to me if it doesn't meet these criteria. One is, if I go to the platform's website or product's website, is there a company or about page where I can see some humans? Like, I want to know who's behind the technology. If the company is not putting their people behind their product, I'm not even considering it. Like, I want to see who's the leadership team, who's going to be part of that organization. That's number one. If it's just a product page and there's no about, it might be trustworthy, but I don't have enough proof to trust that product. Second is, where is that company located? And more importantly, where is that data being stored? Especially being in healthcare, medical education, serving a lot of universities and hospitals, that really matters. And if we're looking at a tool for our team, I want to make sure they're based out of the US or in a country with similar laws, because that means that the data laws are similar. The third thing is, how does information flow? For example, AI allows us to build products that connect to other tools really quickly. So I can submit a request from one product and send it to 15 different things in a few seconds. So is it clear that if we submit something in there and it analyzes something, which companies is it using to analyze the data? Is it OpenAI? Is it Gemini? Is it Claude? How does that flow? So those are 3 things that I want to know: the people behind it, The second thing is, where is the information stored? Is it in the US or some similar laws? And three, how does information flow when our employees are using it? So I think if you do ask those three questions, then you can see, is it even worth bringing IT in it to do a full analysis?
We don't want sensitive data scattered all over the place. So, next question for our audience. How do you make sure AI improves real outcomes in your organization? I love how this moves around. It looks like set goals and measure results and try things and adjust. They were on a tie. Okay, try things and adjust is the winner here. Yep, and set goals and measure results come second place. Train and support people is the third one.
This is a really insightful information. So one answer here really covers the other three. It's build the right culture. If you have the right organizational culture, you are going to be training and supporting people. You are going to be setting goals and measuring, and you are going to be encouraging employees to try things and figure things out. There was a recent publication, I think, through McKinsey about how ROI for use of AI is not there, and people are not finding the results for the investment, and the use is actually going down, which I fully understand, because people have been throwing money at AI and saying, hey, do stuff. And then a lot of people were getting laid off, and it's like, we don't need humans anymore, which is silly, not the right way to look at this kind of technology. At Medtrics, one of the things that I like to do is a bottoms up approach. You can't take something so novel and say, we're going to do AI, and then just start throwing stuff up. Instead, it's really creating a place of trust where people want to experiment, and then letting people reinvent their work and figuring out new ways to do it. And this is something that, for example, for our software development, it was something that in the beginning, it was very challenging for us to get some of our dev team members to embrace AI-assisted coding. I set up a task for two developers to work together, and their goal was to use AI to analyze certain results and then work with your partner to see what you can learn by leveraging AI. And then on a Friday, we would talk about the things that they learned. And this became like a weekly exercise for about a month and a half. And then afterwards, they were bouncing ideas from each other and different ways to leverage that technology. By letting the team members bring up these ideas and experiment and figure things out, they end up reinventing and figuring out ways to do stuff, as opposed to me saying, you have to do this. And I think that's what happened with a lot of these large enterprise deployments. It was consulting companies saying, this is what we're going to change, without a deep understanding of that organizational culture and requirements. And they are not seeing the results because it wasn't brought up from the people that are on the ground.
Tosh, I'd like to take that one step further to show how that sharing between team members can impact the developers, but also our clients. So just a week ago, Meg from our team, our head of client experience, shared an AI tool with me that anytime I have a meeting, and frequently Tosh or Chris will say, Katie, write up a development ticket. That's a great idea for a feature from a client. And so this AI tool will pull from that recording. It will latch on to them saying, write up a dev task. And then it gives me a summary of that discussion. It gives me a timestamp that I can go to the clip and watch it if I need to. And so quickly I can take that AI write up, create a ticket in our system so the developers know what they need to work on. And we attach that to a client. So as that feature request comes in, which we get those from you all of the time, and they help improve our product, I can quickly keep you updated on where we're at in building that feature. And that's something that I honestly would not have tried to set that up on my own. I'm so glad that Meg did. And she was able to share that with me. And that's a way to ease into it and rely on your teammates to share things with you at different levels when she had time to do that. And there might be something next week that comes up that I can share with her. So it's a great lower stakes test, but really has a big impact.
That's a really good example.
Now let's jump into the next question. Let's hear from our audience. What is a simple but high impact use case for AI in a large organization? From what you have seen, from what you have done, what is something you are using or have used it in the past or are gonna use it in the future? We love our note takers. Process documents, training content, drafting emails. Okay, perfect. Yep, it looks like our note takers win this one, but people use it a lot for process documents and training content, summarizing long reports. Yeah, we do that too, and drafting emails. Can you share how are we using AI within Metrics in terms of this?
As you all know, there's no right answer here. It's really opinions. And my opinion on this is it's automatic meeting notes and action items is not that great. And the reason why it's really good for team members that are learning about it and also to go back to look at something. And we use it a lot. All of our meetings are recorded. We do have action items. But what ends up happening is these summaries and action items, it takes longer for sometimes to process what's in there than, for at least for me, than to just write down a few bullet points myself. And the only time I use these notes or action items is if I forgot something or I want to go back to it. But 95% of the time, it's faster for me to look at it and just write my own notes. But there are new team members that have joined Medtrics. They're still learning all of the nuances of the platform and how different clients use it. So those notes become very handy for them. So it is powerful. But I think as an organization, it's not good to be dependent on these automatic note takers because I've seen it at Medtrics. We had it for every meeting for the past 2 years. There's tons of meeting notes out there that nobody ever goes back to. And now we're actually using those notes to create training content for some of our internal processes. Drafting emails. I also discourage us from using a AI tool to write an email. It can be used to improve an email once you write it, but drafting an email, it ends up becoming very generic and sometimes wordy if you're not prompting it correctly. But it takes away that personal touch when you're writing these emails. Summarizing long reports, I agree, it's really good. And I use it all the time. The only thing is, like in a large organization, it's hard to know what everybody else needs, the depth of knowledge somebody else needs. So it may or may not be helpful. But one area that I really encourage everyone to use AI is the first one, process documents and training content. And when I say training content, I don't mean medical education training content. I mean like organizational, how do we do things training content. This is a common thing that we do at Medtrics, especially we're a growing company. We had doubled in size in the last year, and we have a lot of team members coming on board. As a startup, we don't have everything written down properly for like processes. So what we sometimes do is get in a call and just talk about how we do things. And then we take the notes that were recorded, or the transcript that was recorded, and throw it into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, any one of those, and it'll say, create a concise process document from this. And now we have that whole thing documented step by step. Another thing that we do is sometimes there's a complex workflow that we have set up for a client and how to use Medtrics, which is, our institutions use Medtrics in so many different ways. Chris or I would record a video of what we did to set up that, and so that if somebody else needs to know about it, but nobody wants to go back and watch a video, you're in a meeting and you want to quick something up, you need to search for it. So we would take that recording and just give it to ChatGPT to outline exactly what we said. Now we have that reference material. So if the source of truth is a human, which could be in a recording of the process or a recording of the thing, and then you're using AI to polish it and draft it, it ends up being a very high quality document. So I encourage everyone, if you don't have certain processes document or your process documents are really outdated, boring, and nobody wants to read it, it's a good time to use these AI tools to document things, and it makes the organization more efficient.
Yeah, and something I would like to add in there is that when I joined the team, we teamed up and started like drafting all of the sales processes, etc., to be ready for when the company started growing more and more and more people joining. So English is not my first language, even though I try to speak it as well as possible. But sometimes my brain works faster and better in Spanish. So something I personally did for the documenting these processes was speaking to the ChatGPT in Spanish, explaining what I do every day, how I do it, and everything, asking it to translate it to English. I will double check because it didn't have like the right tone of voice that I wanted. I did want the person reading through it to be like, okay, this was written by a human, not like a bot. So it's something that it works for me, but I'm pretty sure if anyone at any of the institutions that are here right now have exchange students or have students from abroad, that they might have some challenges sometimes communicating in English or translating. This is also like another use you can give it.
These tools have become multimodal where you can have audio and video capabilities. So one of the things that we have done internally was take a lot of calls that I have done and created a bot. I called it Neo, which is our dog's name, but everybody at the company calls it Toshbot. And you can throw scenarios at it and it'll take Medtrics training content and give you answers, and you're talking to it like a human. And the powerful thing about it supports 70 different languages. So we have institutions in other countries, their administrators are not as comfortable bringing up things in a meeting in English, but now they can talk to this tool in whatever language they feel comfortable in, and it's going to answer questions about metrics. One of the beautiful things about AI is if you learn the basics of it and how these things work, it's not that difficult. There's not much magic happening behind the scenes other than tapping into one of these 4 tools like Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, or Grok. Those are the 4 big ones that you can use to build these things.
Awesome. So now that we learned how can AI be used on a leadership level, we will also like to share some practical tips on how educators can use AI. For our audience in here, have you used AI as an educator? Okay, and what have you used it for? Things are moving, student feedback, create lecture content, managing admin tasks, and someone have not used it yet, but we're giving you quite a few ideas on how to use it. Okay, so Tim, how can educators use AI?
I'm especially happy that 15% said map learning objectives, because we're going to look at 2 use cases for curriculum mapping, which is one of my personal favorites, but I know one of our biggest struggles when it comes to workload and complexity. I'll show you 2 examples where we've partnered with our clients on AI mapping. We have 2 institutions here. We have veterinary medicine and a school of medicine. This really shows the flexibility of AI when it comes to your programs and curriculum mapping. Clemson is our first example, and this is a fresh curriculum. They'll start taking students next year. They are in an amazing planning phase. And the benefit here is they have a blank slate for their curriculum. They're coming in with faculty and administrative teams that are experts who've worked at other institutions, but they don't have to go treasure hunting. They don't have to refresh a curriculum, or like we did when I was back in medicine, sometimes we would have to go find a printed syllabus out of a file cabinet to get course objectives. So we have made great leaps in curriculum mapping and now incorporating AI. So we have our first clean slate curriculum where we've used AI. And we also have at Buffalo an existing curriculum. So in this case, they have a legacy curriculum that they're phasing out while they're bringing in a revised curriculum at the same time. So their administration and their faculty are working in 2 curricula at the same time. So I would love to see in the chat, I don't know if a thumbs up is the best for this, but if you've lived through parallel curricula, give me a thumbs up or anything to indicate that you've made it through that process, because we know that's challenging. Oh, yay, some good comments coming in. People have experienced it. They've made it through. They're here today, and we're going to tell you how it can get a little bit easier. So with these cases, they wanted to leverage AI to help map their curriculum to get quick insight into all the objectives and how those meet their program outcomes without burdening the faculty. So in Clemson's case, they're in the process still of hiring faculty. So their administrative team is really taking on this initial step of mapping their program objectives. But this will save the faculty in the future. They will be walking into some established mappings that they can refine as they teach their courses. With Buffalo, we're also trying to save faculty time. They've already mapped an existing curriculum, but you want that expertise and feedback on the revised curriculum moving forward. So AI mapping is allowing us to target the curriculum and really just put the mappings in front of the faculty for their courses and rotations that they're working in. This is a curriculum tree, and I want to note this is Medtrics demo data. This is not data from a client. With the example of this tree, if we move from left to right, we look at the different levels of objectives. So the first one that Silvana's hovering over is your global objectives. So those are those highest level of objectives like the PCRS, CBVE for veterinary schools, those highest level of outcomes you want your learners to achieve. So for both institutions, those were ready to go. The next level is the program level. That's our little green box. And those were established as well. And they had their mappings from program to global ready. So those were the first wins. The next column represents all of your course and rotation objectives. So this is where you start getting into hundreds, maybe hundreds and hundreds of lines of data containing course and rotation objectives. So both institutions had those, and this is where Clemson started to use AI mapping. We created a prompt to help quickly map those course and rotation objectives back up to program. So this was a way to kickstart that process so that they could go in and review the output, see if the mappings were correct. And we learned that we needed a little refinement. So this is where we've discussed AI isn't perfect on the first go. They recognized that not all of the clinical skills objectives were being captured. So this is where you can fine tune your prompts to achieve a better result. So we ran that again, and their administrative team was able to review, and then we uploaded these mappings to Medtrics. So when those new faculty come in next year, they have a beautiful curriculum tree that they can filter down to their course, simply make any adjustments. If a mapping is broken in that process, it will be identified and they can say, here's a brand new course objective. It needs to be mapped back up to a program level. So that's how kind of the newer program worked. Buffalo took it another step further. So the farthest column in yellow represents all of those sessions that you have, lectures, labs, simulations, hundreds and hundreds of rows more of data to look at. And that is something they did not want to place on the faculty and really target how they provided their mapping results to their program. So the process is the same at that level of working with an AI prompt to map your session back up to your course. And because course has already been mapped to program and global, that completes the tree. So they followed the same process, reviewed the initial results by their administrative team, and now they're able to take that to targeted faculty members for their courses for feedback. So this is where AI is the tool. You are the one writing and refining the prompt, and your administrative team can provide insight into the entire curriculum, but then have faculty filter down to just those areas they need to focus on, saving them, I would say, days, weeks of time with their mapping. So this is where we're at right now. Again, we've gotten out of the filing cabinets and paper, but Medtrics has bigger plans for how to automate this even further in the system. And Tosh is going to give us a preview of where we're going with that.
So a couple of things to add to what Katie said. Faculties hate doing this. I'm a radiology faculty myself. I've never been trained on how to map a curriculum. And there's nothing more painful than reading two sentences and trying to figure out what's the similarities with them. And no offense to all the curriculum deans if you're on, and I know all the curriculum deans love doing this. But faculty members, they love teaching students and making sure the students' lectures are ready. So one of the things to encourage, I always like to start with the why. Like when you're talking to the faculty members, the goal of the mapping is to make sure that the students are being prepared for whatever courses. And these session objectives, simply because we write them doesn't mean that it aligns with the overall picture of the course and what we're trying to accomplish. And then we eliminate that tedious process. So large language models has many pros and cons, but one of the number one pros about it is it's built for finding relationships between words. It's taking a sentence, breaking it up into a vector, a number, a set of tokens, and then it's finding relationships between words and sentences. That is exactly what curriculum mapping is. You're taking one sentence and seeing which of these aligns with these other sentences. And so we're basically tapping into the number one capability of a large language model. Katie went over how we did this with institutions and all of our AI capabilities. There's no additional cost to our customers. It's really about just leveraging these large tools that are out there. And you can do this yourself if you want to basically go into ChatGPT, upload your session objectives and your course objectives and have it map it and teach your faculty to do it if they have access to it or you're allowing them to have access to it. So it's really a simple process to do it. The advantage of doing it in Medtrics is obviously it's already connected to all of the courses and everything. So there's no need to move it. And then one of the things that we're working on the next page here is being able to do this in batch within the system itself. Right now, it's a process that our team works with these institutions to map it, give it to them, and then the faculty will review it, and we get that updated version and we load it. But we're moving that into the system because we've seen that this works well, and it's battle tested, and it's going to be coming out into the platform so that any institution that is using Medtrics, there's no excuse for not having the curriculum fully mapped.
Awesome. And I do want to read something that Sarah Creasy, nice to see you here, Sarah, left. She says she's so grateful for the AI drafted mappings. This is what's making our curriculum mapping possible. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah's from University of Buffalo. Yep.
Of Buffalo. So yeah, thank you. Now, we know we're all humans and we make mistakes. We're not perfect. So how can we use AI to fix data entry errors?
I'll kick this one off and let's talk a little bit about batch grammar and spell check capabilities with AI. And our specific use case will be for MSPE letters. So the medical student performance evaluations that are critical to students seeking residency. So one thing that we have worked on with multiple clients is going through all of those preceptor comments. So like curriculum mapping, this is another area where you have hundreds of rows of data that you need to review to put comments on the students' letters for residency program review. So we have the same goal as our clients and institutions with this. You want to share the preceptor comments about the students, and you want to retain the meaning and make sure that it is professional and clear. So one way we do that is leveraging AI to review those comments. So what we have on the screen here is the input and output. So the institutions have those hundreds of rows of preceptor comments for students. And then we have worked on an output that gives you different areas to review. So again, this is a tool. The ultimate review and approval is still in the hands of the institution. So you'll receive a suggested revision for the comment and suggested edits, and then sentiment. So it can tell you if the comment is positive, negative, or neutral, and what elements contribute to that. So in this example here, you can easily see that there is a spelling error for enthusiastic. So that is something that at the discretion of your institution, if you want to correct simple spelling errors that do not change the meaning and the impact of that comment, this is a quick way to identify those. And then we have in the comment, see above for more details. So there is context missing about what the preceptor saw. We assume it's positive from this comment, but we don't know. So you can use the AI tool to help catch those and see if that portion needs to be removed or if you need to go to that preceptor. So one of the greatest ways to use this is to sort by sentiment, especially that negative category, and see what those mean. If they're negative on performance, maybe even a step further if something was inappropriate or a case of unprofessionalism, and that's something that should have been caught or could be addressed now. So again, a great way to take a large amount of data that, from what we've seen, teams will lock themselves in their offices for days or weeks to filter through these comments and follow up with faculty or even the students, and all moving towards that goal of having a clear and professional MSPE letter that is comprehensive of the student's performance. So this is where we're at right now, but Tosh is going to tell us a little bit about how we're moving towards real-time editing of these comments for preceptors.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. This has been a big project. The MSPE generators is one of our most popular tools. Essentially, it takes a lot of the workload off of drafting the letters, creating all the charts for these letters. But at the same time, until we leveraged AI, we couldn't help institutions with some of these issues that they were dealing with manually and going through these one by one. And like Katie emphasized, it really is about fixing these typos. It's like taking the spell check in Microsoft Word and doing it at scale. And the reason why this is important is because, like Silvana said, we're all human. And when a program director is looking at a MSPE letter, when they see a typo, even if they're not intentionally making a judgment call, it could be a subconscious decision, a bias towards that MSPE letter. That typo was put in there by some physician who's running around the hospital trying to get an evaluation done. And it shouldn't penalize that student's chances of getting an interview because it should not have been in there in the first place. So that's why it is a good thing to do this, even if you're not. And I know that, I had debates with individuals who feel strongly that we shouldn't do something like this, but it is something most institutions are doing, and it's something that I think it's a correct thing to do because that's the best way to handle these situations. But some of our conversations led to another idea that we're working on. So instead of correcting these issues after the fact, what we're going to be doing in the near future is putting this on the preceptor side as they're filling out an evaluation. If they click submit and there is a typo or grammar in their message, a pop-up will come up and says, hey, you got this typo on here. Here's a corrected version. Do you want to save this instead? And they'll be able to press accept and submit it. So you're putting it back on the preceptor side to do this proactively instead of having to do this later. This one also, even if you're not working with Medtrics, you can do this on your own. And it's really about just working through that process to use one of those 4 tools that I mentioned to clean this up and then having a proper review process.
If someone around here contributes to do these MSP letters or is in charge, drop an emoji. We know this might be helpful for you. So we have quite a few faculty here. So how can we personalize the faculty experience with AI?
This is a personal favorite of mine, and I have been trying to persuade people to do this. I'm a radiology faculty, and I practice emergency radiology. If you ask me questions about my practice and whether someone can diagnose a stroke or a trauma, I'm going to care more about that question than a competency that's filled with academic jargon that was put together by ACGME or another organization. But deans and program directors obviously needs to pay attention to these competencies because that's how you can standardize the data and submit it for accreditation needs. But how do you make that personalized evaluation quickly? Because no program director or dean has time to create separate questions for every single rotation. All of you have syllabus for your clerkships and your rotations. Take those syllabus and leverage tools like ChatGPT to use the syllabus to create personalized questions and then map that back to the competencies. So this way, for each rotation, you're asking highly customized questions for that particular experience, but behind the scenes, you're capturing competency data. And this is something that Medtrics helps institutions do, where each question can be mapped to certain competencies, and then our competency dashboard shows the standardized data. So this is something that you can do on your own with all those PDFs using ChatGPT. And I encourage you to experiment, because forming well-structured questions and text is also one of the superpowers of these LLMs. And there's no need to try to do all this manually.
We have a question here from the audience. Have you or anyone validated between AI summarized MSPE and human summarized MSPEs?
We have not dealt with any summarization from a metric standpoint. We only deal with the crafting of the letters. Basically, it's like a Microsoft mail merge. We take all the data for a student and prepares the letter, inserts all of the graphics in there. And the only AI usage here is for any evaluation comments. If there's any typos on those comments, we fix those. The summarization, if this is in regards to on the residency side, if you're getting a MSPE and you're asking an AI tool to summarize it, we don't have any experience with that. Maybe someone in the audience can jump in there.
Yeah.
I know there are tools now that takes those MSPE letters and summarizes it for program directors to get through it faster. My personal opinion of it is that what I said earlier, when one of the questions that Silvana had, it says AI used for summarizing long documents. My opinion is it's hard to know what AI will consider as important. And I would not be a fan of using AI to summarize something as important in MSPE if I was a program director.
We're gonna jump to the Q&A in a second, but some final thoughts. I guess I use summarization differently than you are interpreting. Okay, she says, I meant how good the correlation is between
I see.
MSP and humans MSP.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is really key. There is no right or wrong answer. And there is also no book out there that tells you this is the best practices yet. So it's really about trying it and being an expert in that field and making a decision as to is it working or not, and then showing others, hey, this works. This is why it works. You can use it. And then that person takes it a little further. And that's really what's happening. And I think the number one thing is to try things and then test your hypothesis to make sure that it's actually working.
Awesome. So while we hear some final thoughts, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll get to those next. Any final thoughts, Tosh, Katie?
Yeah, so I added this at the end because I had a meeting with some of our investors recently, and they were talking about how the AI bubble is happening, and it's not all hyped up to be. And I 100% agree. There is a big bubble forming, and they quoted this is going to be like the .com bubble. I also agree with that. But what I also emphasize is that the .com bubble and the AI bubble may cause the Wall Street stocks to go down soon. But if you look at the internet, the growth of the internet, look at where it was and where it is now. And the companies, the people that were learning how to use the internet heavily and building things ends up creating that new norm. And that's really what's happening here, where we're in the infancy of these kind of tools. And there's a lot of hype around this, and it's going to settle down. And then it's going to slowly grow and become a new way of doing work. And I think the number one thing that I would encourage everybody to do is just try and learn and experiment. And then if you do that on a daily basis, a year later, you'll see that, oh, why am I doing it this way? I can be doing this other way. And then 2-3 years down the road, you're ahead of the curve when it comes to using these tools.
Any questions from the people joining us today? How do you see AI being used for assessment of learning in medical education? Thank you, Chris.
So I think two ways. One is on the personalization component. Again, rather than having a few generic assessment tools, leveraging these tools to create more personalized assessments that is personalized to the individual and the setting. And then the other side is when you're a large organization like yourself, being able to extract meaning quickly. There's summarization, but the other thing is picking up risk. At the end of the day, an organization, a medical school, vet school, a graduate medical education department, the main thing that you want to do is you're not missing any early signs of someone that's struggling in training. So being able to pick those up sooner so that you can offer the proper support to make sure they're becoming competent and graduating. I think that's going to be key. And this can be already be done in certain ways, like comments from different evaluations. It could be done from how they interact with different material. I think that's going to be the key. The first is personalization, and the second is using that data to make decisions sooner than later.
We have another interesting question here. My only concern is the environmental cost. Can we justify over-reliance? But I am in the minority with this thought and question. When does the benefit override the environmental costs?
I agree with you. I think there is no justification right now. Like the amount of money and energy that's being wasted, like even like these large data centers right now is mostly unused, and it's because no big tech company wants to be behind. Like most things in technology, what ends up happening is the hardware capabilities eventually catch up. And right now it's wasting a lot of resources because we're using the hardware now. But think about even your computer, like your iPhone. Your iPhone is, or Android device is 1,000 times more powerful than these desktop computers that were on like 20 years ago. And I think that's what's also going to happen with these chips, so that they're going to become much more efficient and faster. And then you're not going to have those unreasonable environmental side effects.
Okay, high five. It was indeed helpful. I'm glad I joined. Do you have any tips on encouraging the use of AI by PDS and faculty, especially for an organization going from manual processes to using systems like Medtrics?
It's a tough thing to answer because it's really, I think from a leadership standpoint, it's personality and organizational culture. But the number one thing is, from a leadership standpoint, is have that culture of safety where they know that if they are trying something and something goes wrong, they are not going to be penalized or getting in trouble. So the first thing to do is making sure they have access to a safe sandbox environment. Like if you have ChatGPT, for example, we don't want everyone to just use their personal ChatGPT account. Like every employee at Medtrics, they get access to all of the paid versions of different tools like Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. So if they want to use any one of those, it's a Medtrics account, and all the data is protected under the agreements with those institutions. So that's the first thing, like setting up that access so that it's safe. And then the comfort level of like, I'm going to try something. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be within the guardrails of the organization. And if I learn something, I'm going to share it. That's the first. I think that's part of that motivation to do something that has never been done before. And then the other piece is exchange of ideas, because this is really a collaborative learning. And is there a medium to talk to each other? So at Medtrics, one of the things, we use Slack for internal communication. So what I set up was like a channel. This is purely for AI discussions. It was very slow to start. For 2 months, nobody was posting except for me in there. But now I don't even post, and everybody's like, oh, I learned this, I learned that. And it becomes a domino effect. So safe environment, safe tools that they have access to, and then also encouraging people to share. And then initially it's going to be probably going to the leadership team that is sharing things. But if you keep that up, eventually the employees would, and PDs and admins will start to follow.
So if there's no further questions or thoughts, we want to thank you everyone for joining, for sparking the conversation. And it was awesome to share like our experience as a team, but it was also very helpful to read and see what your thoughts are on AI. So everything is about testing, trying, of course, doing everything safely. And we'll see you on the next webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Have a good rest of the day, everybody. Thank you.